When a millionaire boss screamed, "You only clean floors," a maid discovered an incredible secret. Emma inhaled the crisp, air-conditioned atmosphere as she stepped into the glass-clad towers of the law firm. Though the marble floors reflected the glory of $100 million deals, she felt smaller than the dust collect that spun in the sunbeams. Each morning began the same way, her uniform pressed and pristine. She silently scrubbed away remnants of a world that never noticed her. Perhaps today would be different. She could feel a faint flicker of hope buried deep beneath the layers of fatigue. But then, the volume of frantic voices reverberated through the halls. "You only clean floors." Her boss, a millionaire by every definition, shot at her during an intense morning, eyes ablaze as he barreled past as if she were mere furniture. His words echoed like an alarm bell, stirring a vulnerability she thought long buried. She felt the heat of humiliation creep up her neck, reopening wounds that her grandmother's lessons of dignity and resilience had not fully healed. How could he belittle everything she was, everything she fought for? As she polished the mahogany conference table, anger tangled with despair, threatening to unravel her. The heaviness in her chest quickly morphed into bitterness. Years of working hard, striving to make her mother proud, all shot down in a moment of thoughtless scorn. Emma wanted to scream back, to remind him that this work was necessary, that it mattered. But one look at her reflection in a stainless steel surface reminded her of the realities. She was still just the maid, invisible, underestimated. Pushing through that disappointment, her hands turned numb as she wandered into a hidden storage room filled with dust-covered boxes. Shadows danced around her as she brushed away cobwebs, her heart racing with curiosity blending with dread. Sifting through forgotten company records, she stumbled onto something astonishing, a set of documents detailing an innovative eco-friendly invention by the firm's founder. Originally designed to help working-class families thrive, these plans had faded into obscurity, overshadowed by greed. Could this revelation be a life raft amidst her turbulent sea of struggle? Her hands trembled, conflict brewing within her. Could she honor her mother's values of hard work and integrity while considering something as audacious as exposing this secret? Would sharing it betray the very principles that defined her? She was standing on a knife's edge between desire and fear, weighing her family's welfare against her conscience. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Tension coiled tightly in her chest, making it hard to breathe. Joe, the elderly janitor, noticed her expression and came over, sharing tales of his own struggles, igniting her inner fire with stories of resilience and courage. But what if revealing this hidden invention would endanger her job security? Anxiety twisted in her gut, swirling endlessly as moments of everyday injustice collided with her mounting turmoil. The thought of confronting her boss turned her insides to ice. Could this decision shift her life forever? As she gathered her breath, her world tilted precariously. Just as she steeled herself to speak, she discovered a surprising thread of connection, shared family histories that shattered her notions of privilege and worth. It left her questioning everything she thought she knew about the fabric of this elite world. Threatened by the precarious balance of both hope and ruin, Emma stood at a juncture where her choice could either elevate her family's struggles or bury her dreams into the ground. The weight of the secret loomed, and she knew this was only the beginning. Emma crouched on the floor of the storage room, the dusty document still clutched in her trembling hands. Joe's words echoed in her mind, a lifeline in a sea of uncertainty. She bit her lower lip as she reluctantly laid the papers back down, the weight of their implications pressing heavily on her spirit. Confronting the boss, unveiling the invention, it all felt like a pipe dream, impossible and, frankly, dangerous. Was it possible to reclaim her dignity while risking her job? Stepping out of the dimness of the room, Emma walked through the bright halls with a newfound sense of purpose. She had spent years blending into the background, learning to delight in small triumphs. But the encounter with Joe had unlocked something deeper within her. She recalled her grandmother's lessons as she polished the glass facade of the entrance, the way her spirit sparked at every mention of fairness, those stories of resilience littered with incredible bravery. Unbeknownst to her, doubt still simmered, gnawing at the edges of Emma's resolve. The mere idea of confrontation tantalized her, yet a looming fear clouded her vision. Would the world, which had always overlooked the people like her, ever allow a maid to rise above her station? These thoughts tangled together, creating a knot of indecision that tightened around her heart. Determined to test her own limits, she reached out to the staff at the law firm beyond the walls of the cleaning crew. During lunch, Emma sat quietly in the corner of the break room, listening to conversations that floated around her. She absorbed the jargon and ambitions of those who moved in elite circles, each tidbit of knowledge feeding her hunger for a life beyond cleaning floors. Emma pictured herself not just as a maid, but as someone capable of changing narratives. If she could find the courage to share the invention with those who might listen, perhaps she could rewrite her own story. Days passed, each one immersing her deeper into the daily grind, yet amplifying an underlying determination that cracked through the surface of her timid existence. Finally, she channeled her frustration into a plan. Rather than expose the documents outright in a confrontation with her millionaire boss, what if she sought allies within the firm? She could target those who might be passionate about eco-initiatives, buyers that cared for issues that hit close to home. The fragile nature of her own dreams could hang in the balance, but if one individual was swayed in her favor, it could alter the fabric of her destiny. Each day after her shift, Emma devoted herself to research. During her breaks, she absorbed as much as she could about environmental policy and social justice. The more she learned, the clearer her vision crystallized. This wasn't just about her. It was about the potential impact of the invention on working-class lives and her own. And then it happened. She overheard a conversation between two lawyers discussing the firm's upcoming retrospective on corporate responsibility. It was the perfect opportunity. As the lawyers mentioned that their deadlines loomed, Emma felt a swell of hope. If she could find a way to weave in the historical significance of the invention, perhaps, just perhaps, she could pique their interest. Everything shifted in her mind. She would create a compelling narrative infused with emotion and purpose, while exposing the injustices buried beneath the firm's ambition. Igniting passion instead of approaching out of fear could be the key. Weakness transformed, her conflict turned into a fervent spark for change within her. Rehearsing every night, Emma guided her thoughts and prepared to speak with confidence. It was no longer about being just a maid. It was about being the one to unveil a truth that deserved recognition. Soon, the moment would arrive where she'd have to either hide behind the cleaning cart or stand bravely in the limelight of her own secret saga. As she gathered her courage, she knew one thing was clear. The time had come to face her fears and deliver the truth. Would she muster the audacity to connect with those lawyers and share what had been uncovered? The balance of her own fate hinged on that moment. Wherever it led, she would no longer restrict herself to simply cleaning floors. She was ready for something far greater. But in the depths of her mind lurked another daunting thought. What if the truth wasn't welcomed, but instead, it unleashed chaos? As the clock ticked towards that pivotal moment, Emma realized her world was on the precipice of change. One way or another, doors would open. Would she be ready to step through? Emma stood in the break room, the hum of the refrigerator and the distant drone of office chatter fading into a dull roar. Her palms felt slick with sweat, betraying her determined facade. Over the past weeks, she had meticulously crafted her strategy, but now it felt as fragile as the paper she had once clutched. She needed to initiate the conversation before her resolve eroded, but she hesitated as doubts crept in, whispering reminders of her place in the hierarchy. "You can do this," she muttered under her breath, pacing back and forth in the solitary corner of the room. It was a mantra she had repeated countless times, but her conviction was wavering. For years, she had lived in the shadows, a fly on the wall of this world of immense power and privilege. What made her think she could now step into the light, absorbing the thrilling exchanges of the lawyers around her, offered flashes of hope, but it also underscored her perceived inadequacies. Did her life and aspirations even matter in a space so dominated by wealth and status? In that moment of reflection, Emma remembered the stories she had heard from her grandmother. Tales of fierce women who defied the odds, whose voices carved pathways through history's dense forest of oppression. Fueled by these memories, she straightened her posture, noticing her reflection in the window, a stranger infused with determination. Perhaps she was more than just an overlooked maid. Maybe she was a vessel carrying someone else's voice, with truths aching to break free. She took a deep breath, collected herself, and stepped out of the break room. Her heart raced as she approached a group of lawyers near the coffee machine, laughter spilling from them with an ease she yearned to imitate. Among them stood Claire, an associate known for her passion for environmental rights. Emma had listened intently as Claire championed projects focusing on sustainability. If anyone could see the value in her discovery, it would be Claire. Emma waited for the right moment, her stomach twisting as she fought to break through her internal barriers. Then, as a lull formed in the conversation, she spoke. "Excuse me, Claire. Do you have a moment?" The unexpected directness in her voice caught the attention of the group. It was now or never. Claire smiled with interest, her brows lifting in recognition. "What's on your mind, Emma?" There was genuine curiosity in Claire's tone, and Emma seized it like a lifeline. "I heard you talking about corporate responsibility and suggestive innovations. There's something important I think you should know about." She hesitated, the world around them dimming to a near halt, just her and Claire standing at a precipice. Claire leaned in, her attention unwavering. "I'm all ears." Emma's heart thudded in her chest as she spilled her carefully sculpted narrative about the invention she had uncovered, mapping its potential impact not only on the firm, but on communities yearning for change. Each word cascaded from her lips, fueled by passion and urgency as she painted a picture of progress. But as Emma's voice built momentum, a chilling thought struck her. What if this conversation didn't lead to an ally but instead left her exposed, vulnerable to the very forces she sought to challenge? The room shifted, uncomfortable tension coiling around her like creeping ivy. What if her boss found out? Would she be seen as an upstart instead of a visionary? Emma felt in that moment a convergence of possibilities, suspended on the knife's edge between triumph and disaster. "And your idea could actually change how we view responsibility," Claire replied, an intrigued sparkle in her eye. But her words were counterbalanced by a gravitas that weighed on Emma's shoulders. "But it will require a lot of support, and potentially some aggressive opposition from the upper management." The implication hung heavily in the air, and Emma knew she had only scratched the surface of her journey. The firm she served was labyrinthine in its complexities, and what lay ahead seemed daunting. Would she have the strength to navigate those challenges, or would the very act of standing up set forth events that could unravel everything she had hoped to achieve? As Claire asked her a follow-up question, Emma felt the ground shift below her, realizing that every step forward was also a step into uncharted territory. It was no longer just about her. It was about confronting a system that favored silence over voice. With her heart pounding, Emma braced herself for the next question expected from Claire. Would it empower her forward, or send her spiraling back into silence? She knew she was on the cusp of a reckoning, and the path forward remained obscured amid a fog of uncertainty. Emma's pulse quickened as she turned her attention back to Claire. The weight of Claire's question clung to her like a damp coat. Would this opportunity slip through her fingers, or could she solidify the fragile momentum she had just begun to build? "There are possibilities for corporate responsibility," Emma began, her voice steadier now, drawing from a reservoir of strength she hadn't known existed. "What if we could not only lessen environmental impact, but turn it into a competitive advantage? I've been thinking about a way to create a process that incorporates sustainability right into our pricing strategy. It ties directly to client engagement." Emma sensed the spark in Claire's gaze deepen. Encouraged, she pressed on. "Imagine a certification that comes with our eco-friendly services. It'd attract clients who value corporate responsibility and actually implement those practices." Claire nodded, curiosity mingling with skepticism. "It's a bold idea, Emma, and definitely a conversation starter. But getting buy-in from the partners will be another story entirely." The change in Claire's tone startled Emma. She had expected the discussion to flow naturally, but the prospect of resistance loomed large, overshadowing her earlier bursts of confidence. What if her idea was deemed too pedestrian? What if they laughed her out of the room? "May I ask?" Claire continued, her brow knitted in thought. "What makes you passionate about this? I've seen a range of motivations in this industry, and often it's personal." Emma hesitated. It felt like a trap, teasing her to expose vulnerability she had worked so hard to conceal. Yet she realized now was not the time for half-truths or evasions. "My grandmother used to tell me stories about women who fought for what they believed in," she began, the words flowing with unexpected ease. "She believed that even the smallest voice could ignite change, whether it was in a family or a community. Her resilience has always been my guide." Claire's expression softened, and Emma sensed a shift. "We all have stories, Emma. What you come from, what you believe can fuel your ascension here," Claire said, her voice firm yet gentle. "But your resolve is going to face scrutiny. The larger firms will demand proof, and they love to snuff out ideas that stray too far from their usual practices." The pang of doubt fluttered in Emma's chest, now amplified with the gravity of Claire's acknowledgement. "Then how do I prepare for that?" she questioned, anxiety creeping into her tone. "You strategize. You gather allies," Claire suggested. "You need to articulate not only the vision but also the tangible benefits: time efficiency, cost savings, client retention. The mechanics of this firm are complex, and so is the battle you're facing." Emma's mind raced, absorbing her colleague's insights like a sponge soaking up water. Each morsel increased her understanding of the labyrinth she now navigated. "Perhaps you can join me in a meeting next week," Claire offered. "I'll be discussing environmental strategies with the senior partners then. You can present your ideas. It might be the platform you need to gain traction." Excitement ignited within Emma, yet it was tempered by the clenching grip of fear. "What if they dismiss it?" she pressed, a stubborn edge creeping into her voice. "Then you adapt. You make your proposal refined. You keep finding ways to connect the dots between your thoughts and what matters to them." As Emma nodded, a faint glimmer of resolve sparked anew, illuminating the path ahead. She considered her hidden strengths suddenly thrust into the light, not just as a maid with aspirations, but as an innovator willing to challenge notions and rewrite the narrative surrounding her. Suddenly, from the far corner of the break room, a voice cut through their hopeful exchange. Liam, the most senior partner, grumbling about the rising costs from non-essentials like sustainability efforts. Emma felt a shudder run through her. Was this the tone she might face, or were there moments when the tide could turn in her favor? Emma lifted her head defiantly. She was not ready to retreat into silence. She would push forward. Could she really harness her truths and transform them into a weapon to challenge the hierarchy? The defining line was drawn. It was time to solidify her role in this world, to shift from a mere observer to a force demanding acknowledgement. As the weight of Liam's words faded into the background, she clenched her fists tightly, vowing to lean into the discomfort, knowing that growth stemmed from confrontation. But as Emma stood at this pivotal junction, doubt lingered. Would she embrace this challenge, or succumb to the fear of being dismissed once more? The answer awaited just beyond the threshold of her own resolve. Emma awoke to the rhythm of her heartbeat, a constant reminder that she stood on the brink of something transformative. The upcoming meeting loomed over her. Days slipped rapidly through her fingers, each filled with preparations that required not just research but a reimagining of herself as a leader. In the quiet of her room, she spread articles on corporate sustainability across her desk like a map of uncharted territory. Each piece of information became a building block for her argument, an arsenal against anticipated objections. She focused on statistics that revealed the financial benefits of sustainable practices, the reputational boost associated with eco-friendly endeavors, and case studies where other firms had triumphed through foresight. Yet with each passing hour, a creeping dread pooled in her stomach. Self-doubt whispered toxic questions. What if the theories and facts would fail to penetrate the armor of indifference surrounding the senior partners? Determined to fortify her resolve, she reached back to Claire's insights about gathering allies. Emma initiated conversations around the office, weaving sustainability into casual chats as if it were the fabric of everyday discourse. She met Sarah from accounting, who surprised Emma with her enthusiasm for eco-friendly initiatives. "You know, it just makes sense economically. Reducing waste means reducing costs," Sarah noted, her eyes alight with analytical fervor. In another corner, she bumped into Mark from IT, who casually mentioned his department's green energy initiatives. Emma's heart raced with excitement. Right there, she saw the threads weaving a tapestry of support, a network that could amplify her voice when she needed it most. Fueled by these small victories, Emma further refined her presentation. The day before the meeting, she stood before her bathroom mirror, running through her key points with fervor. Her reflection stared back at her, a mix of determination and vulnerability. It wasn't merely about presenting facts. It was about sharing her passion. "I can do this," she whispered, testing the strength of the assertion. When meeting day arrived, tension knotted Emma's stomach like a coiled spring. The conference room, a sleek space with cold marble and glass, felt unwelcoming. The chatter of senior partners discussing quarterly growth trajectories echoed in her ears, a melancholic reminder of the world she wished to disrupt. As she stood to present, every eye turned toward her, a wave of silence sweeping across the room. Emma's voice trembled only slightly as she introduced her proposal. "Today, I'm here to discuss how incorporating sustainability into our business model can not only help the environment but also drive profitability and client engagement," she began, consciously grounding herself in the confidence she had cultivated. But as she outlined her vision, she noticed Liam's skeptical glare piercing through her enthusiasm. Every scowl tightened the knot in her gut, transforming excitement into anxiety. After she presented the certification concept, a pause followed, stretching uncomfortably. "Emma, while your enthusiasm is noted, I fail to see how this addresses our pressing goals," Liam interjected, his tone dismissive and his brow furrowed. The room inclined into a chorus of murmurs, some voicing agreement with him, others hesitating. Here was the confrontation Claire had warned her about. Emma swallowed hard. Would her moment of truth dissolve into defeat, or would she stand firm? "I understand your concerns, Liam," Emma responded, drawing on the strength she had developed in recent days. "But if we harness these strategies, I believe we can stay ahead of the competition while fulfilling our responsibility to our clients and the planet. This isn't just a non-essential, it's an investment in longevity and relevance." The challenge was thrown back to Liam. Emma's pulse quickened, but she stood resolute, awareness dawning that she could embroider doubt into her narrative. For the first time, she saw movement among her colleagues, nods of interest, the spark of curiosity lighting up their faces. The tide began to shift slightly as she fielded questions with newfound poise. But just as she felt a glimmer of hope emerging, Emma sensed something darker looming, a critical backlash from the established order, a challenge that would test every ounce of her resolve. What would happen when the sheer weight of tradition bore down on innovation that dared to threaten it? Emma's heart raced. The answers awaited just beyond her resolve as she prepared for the climax of her confrontation. Emma's determination crystallized in the silence that followed her rebuttal. She felt a shift in the room. Was it hope? No, it was something more tangible. A bristling energy akin to the tension just before a storm. Every gaze, previously skeptical, now bore a spark of engagement, and she seized it like a lifeline. "Let's consider the long-term implications, not just the quarterly reports," she continued, leaning into the moment. "What do our clients truly value? They want assurance that their choices contribute to a sustainable future. Every day that we ignore this reality is a day we risk losing their trust and their business." Her voice grew more assertive as adrenaline coursed through her veins, fueling her argument with details of company losses reported in firms that failed to pivot toward sustainable initiatives. Liam shifted in his seat, his expression rigid yet contemplative. Would he relent? The desire for victory battled within Emma, but she stilled herself. Winning the battle didn't mean a thing if she lost sight of her objectives, innovation for the planet and those who inhabited it. As colleagues began muttering again, Emma's eyes swept across the room, landing on familiar faces. Sarah from accounting, Mark from IT, and even Mary in marketing, whose slight nod was an unspoken alliance. Had she truly created a ripple effect through her informal conversations? Did they see her vision too? The small thoughts of doubt began to dissipate, leaving a burgeoning clarity. Let's explore further, Emma urged, sensing momentum. Imagine a future where our brand stands as a leader in sustainability, a beacon of responsible practice. What if we not only adapted, but thrived? Voices began overlapping now, colleagues tossing around ideas, envisioning solutions, actively participating in the discussion. Was this the collaboration Claire hinted at? The realization sent a spark of exhilaration coursing through her, but before she could bask in the glow of potential collaboration, Liam erupted. "Emma, let's not play pretend," he sneered, the intensity of his glare cutting through the excitement like a hot blade. "You're talking about dreams, not business. We're a company built on concrete strategies. No one cares about your eco-friendly fantasies when we're losing shareholders." A hush fell over the room. Tension thickened the air, coiling around them like vines. Emma stood gravely aware of the full magnitude of opposition's weight crashing down upon her. "I acknowledge your points," she replied, determination sharpening her tone. "But isn't it a fantasy to believe our firm can thrive on outdated methods? Companies that actively embrace sustainable models are outperforming their competitors. By adapting our strategies, we won't just survive, we will lead." The fine line between anxiety and power was testing her. The heightening stakes pushed her to the edge, unraveling a primal urge to fight back. She could feel her heart hammering, not from fear, but from an electric sense of purpose. This was her moment to transcend doubt, to redefine her identity not just as a cog in the machine, but as a vital player in reshaping the future. "Let's try a thought exercise," she proposed, pausing for effect. "What if a competitor decided to launch a bold green initiative next week? Where would we stand? Would our inaction lead us into irrelevance?" The question teetered in the air, a challenge wrapped in urgency. Emma noticed a flicker in Erica's eyes from marketing, barely concealed excitement amid mundanity. It fluttered like a butterfly in her chest. Perhaps even a sliver of doubt about the old guard's tactics was breaking in others. Before another soul could respond, the door swung open, and Claire entered, arm laden with papers. "I couldn't miss this," she exclaimed buoyantly, and her presence injected a fresh energy into the room. At that moment, Emma felt a jolt of hope combined with trepidation. Claire had confidence, and she was here to back Emma. But would Claire's presence reignite the debate, or complicate it further? The room thrummed with anticipation as their eyes converged, signaling they had reached a precipice. Would Emma harness this surge of energy to ignite a breakthrough, or could it lead to a clash that might extinguish her dreams? This was a defining moment. What lay ahead was uncertain but undeniably charged with potential. With a deep breath, she prepared to leverage this turning tide. The stakes had never been higher, but the next steps would determine her trajectory and test every ounce of resolve she cultivated. Emma had become the change she wished to see, yet the impending confrontation weighed heavily on her spirit. What fresh challenges would emerge now that her allies stood at her side? As Claire stepped forward with her papers, Emma detected a fresh wave of energy sweeping the room. Claire's infectious enthusiasm had a knack for rekindling perspectives, but Emma couldn't shake off the weight of uncertainty bearing down on her plans. Would Claire align with her vision, or continue down the path of comfortable descent? "Let's hear what everyone thinks," Claire declared, her voice firm yet inviting. "Emma has sparked a crucial conversation. Sustainability isn't just a trend, it's a movement. We can't afford to ignore it." For a brief moment, Emma reveled in the support. This was her moment to pivot the conversation, to forge a united front against the skepticism of Liam and the like. But as the energy in the room buzzed, Emma recognized that mere words wouldn't suffice. Action would be required to substantiate their shared aspirations. "Thank you, Claire," Emma replied, forcing a confident smile. "What I propose next is a working group, a cross-departmental team dedicated to brainstorming sustainable solutions and strategies. We want practical, actionable insights that can be deployed effectively. Who's with us?" As she spoke, Emma recalled the countless hours spent researching sustainable practices. This wasn't just a fleeting fancy. It was a culmination of her commitment to merging environmental integrity with corporate responsibility. Yet a voice within warned her, not everyone would be on board. Mark from IT raised his hand. I think we can integrate sustainability into our systems, but that requires some restructuring. What are we willing to sacrifice to get there? His question was honest, direct, and pierced through Emma's momentary euphoria. Sacrifices. The prospect unnerved her. Sacrifices could mean cutting ties with old methodologies that had sustained them for so long, or even pushing back against powerful shareholders who weren't ready for such radical shifts. I know the comfort of our existing methods appeals to many of us, she said, deliberately pacing to maintain eye contact with her audience. But are we really ready to face obsolescence just to preserve the status quo? Embracing change often demands risk, the risk of innovating within a stagnant culture, or the risk of pushing against resistance. Liam scoffed from the back of the room, arms crossed defiantly. Emma, let's be real. Your vision is all well and good. But if we go green and shareholders decide to bail, who suffers? You paint a pretty picture, but we each have our livelihoods to think about. Sinking deeper into the mire of opposition, Emma felt her resolve shake momentarily. Just as she was about to retort, Claire shot Liam a determined look. Emma is right. The world is changing. If we don't adapt, we'll drown in the shifts our competitors embrace. We need to position ourselves as a leader, not a follower. Encouraged by Claire's readiness to confront Liam, Emma felt a spark igniting once more. Exactly. Positioning ourselves as pioneers in sustainability can create a ripple effect throughout our industry, attracting clients who value responsibility. We're not giving up our foundation, we're strengthening it through innovation. The conversation began unlocking ideas. Voices rose, suggestions flowed, and tension started to morph into collaborative enthusiasm. Emma felt herself standing taller as each colleague chimed in, fueled by shared visions rather than disillusionment. Then, an unexpected voice broke through the ambiance. Erica's. What if we held a presentation for the entire staff? We could showcase potential initiatives and gather feedback. A bigger platform might let everyone air their concerns. That's brilliant, Emma exclaimed, electrically charged by the idea. Let's make it a workshop. Invite everyone to participate in forming our sustainable direction, and truly involve the entire company in this paradigm shift. But as she basked momentarily in this whirlwind of positive ideas, a gnawing feeling remained. While the conversation was fruitful and collaborative, Emma was keenly aware that Liam's dismissive presence hadn't fully dissipated. The outcome of their discussions would eventually face resistance that could be more formidable than expected. Feeling her palms begin to sweat, she realized that they were moving toward a powerful confluence, but resistance, even disguised as concern, lurked just beneath the surface. Who else would oppose them when they attempted to confront the corporate behemoth's antiquated beliefs? All right, team, Emma concluded. Let's harness this energy. We'll schedule our workshop for next week, and I want everyone to come prepared with ideas. Together, we'll shape the future. As they dispersed, Emma's heart raced with anticipation and unease. She had ignited flickers of hope within the team, yet shadows of doubt loomed large. What would become of their collective ambitions once faced with the unyielding frameworks of habit and tradition? The undeniable tension between aspiration and practical execution loomed over her, and Emma braced herself for the chess match that lay ahead. Would the support she gathered withstand the challenges awaiting their ambition? The stakes grew higher now, demanding not only creative proposals but the resilience to thwart inevitable pushback. The real battle was yet to come, and the clock was ticking down to their workshop. What obstacles would arise from the shadows to challenge her vision? Emma awoke the next morning to a hum of anxiety mingled with anticipation. The clock on her bedside table blinked 6:02 a.m., but instead of the usual rush to get ready, she sat on the edge of her bed, deliberating over her strategy for the upcoming workshop. Her mind raced with the possibilities, yet the looming specter of doubt cast a shadow over her excitement. What if her ideas fell flat? What if Liam's skepticism revived others' insecurities and drove a wedge into their newfound momentum? After a quick shower, she slipped into her favorite blazer, a sharp navy piece that always made her feel like an impromptu leader. Staring at her reflection, she reminded herself that she was not merely pushing an agenda, she was catalyzing change. Embracing her purpose momentarily calmed her nerves. Centered, she reflected on how this workshop could redefine company dynamics and elevate its commitment to sustainability. She arrived at the office early, marveling at the stillness enveloping the mostly empty halls. The quiet allowed her to imagine the outcomes of their meeting, the potential collaboration, the transformative ideas that could flourish. However, the louder thoughts of dissent crept in, spiraling her imagination into the worst-case scenarios. Would Liam take center stage and sap the energy from the room? Would he recruit others to form a resistance alliance against her vision? Despite the mounting pressure, Emma chose to channel it into preparation. Already aware of the potential objections Liam might raise, she meticulously crafted arguments, anticipating each counterpoint like a chess player mapping out the next moves. She wrote cards listing responses to common concerns and printed slides, showcasing successful case studies from rival companies that had embraced sustainability. At 9 a.m., her colleagues began trickling into the conference room, each clutching coffee cups like lifelines as they shifted between casual conversation and serious expressions. Emma did her best to engage everyone. Her smile widened when Claire entered, affirming her presence as a crucial ally. The moment was surreal. Emma would soon be orchestrating a dialogue that could set the agency on a path toward innovation. Once everyone settled, she launched into the presentation with a sense of command. The atmosphere was electric, filled with spirited discussions and flickers of understanding. Yet just as she began to foster enthusiasm around a proposed initiative to cut plastic waste, she spotted Liam's calculating gaze fixed on her. The specter of confrontation loomed closer, making her heart race as she scrambled to maintain the flow of the session. As she approached a pivotal idea, a project that envisioned the agency partnering with eco-friendly suppliers, Liam spoke up, his tone calculating and sharp. "Emma, that sounds good on paper, but how do you expect to negotiate better prices? Are you willing to risk our relationships with our established suppliers for a cause?" Tension crackled through the room, stifling the air. Emma felt the heat rise to her cheeks. It would have been easy to respond defensively. Instead, she inhaled deeply, focusing on her values rather than her insecurities. "Liam, those relationships are important, but we need to evolve. Embracing new suppliers can open doors to innovation and cost savings that traditional methods cannot." As she spoke, something shifted within her. Doubt was no longer her adversary. It was a challenge fueling her resolve. Rather than viewing Liam as an obstacle, she recognized that she could use this moment to foster understanding. "What will it take for those concerned, like you, to feel comfortable exploring this route with me?" Emma challenged, meeting his gaze. Liam's response was pivotal. "I need to see clear metrics that back your claims, potential profits, supplier reliability. You have your work cut out for you." "Then let's make this collaborative," she replied, energy coursing through her. "Let's form focus groups to analyze those metrics and work together on the projections before moving forward." As Emma embraced the dialogue, she felt a powerful conviction rising within her. This was more than about pushing through ideas. It was about engaging others in their concerns. She opened the floor to Liam and others, inviting their insights and challenges to craft a more robust proposal together. With the workshop in full swing, Emma sensed a palpable shift as discussions expanded and other voices emerged. Each comment echoed a blend of trepidation and excitement, and she felt buoyed by their shared aspirations. Yet, in the back of her mind, a worrying thought lingered. What if the deeper connection she sought was still out of reach? When the session finally wrapped up, a sense of collective momentum permeated the room. Emma basked in the realization that they had started breaking ground towards a tangible project that invited collaboration. But that victory was only a small step in the larger journey. As colleagues left the meeting, Emma exchanged glances with Claire, who offered a thumbs up. Just as she allowed herself to feel triumphant, her phone pinged, a notification revealing that the board had requested an immediate meeting to discuss the workshop that would potentially jeopardize her efforts. Breath hitching in her throat, Emma realized that the real confrontation awaited her. A high-stakes negotiation that would test her abilities in an arena far more daunting than the confining walls of the conference room. Would she rise to the occasion, or falter under the weight of leadership? Emma entered the boardroom for her meeting, the heavy door clicking shut behind her. The air felt thick with pressure, a tangible reminder of stakes she never anticipated. Unlike the vibrant discussions in the workshop, this environment created a palpable chill, each board member's gaze a scrutinizing spotlight dissecting her potential failure rather than supporting her cause. "Emma," began Richard, the CEO, his voice firm and unyielding, "we've reviewed the feedback from your workshop. Frankly, it's been mixed. Some members found value, but many are skeptical. They want assurances that your ideas will translate into profits." He leaned forward, a calculated challenge glimmering in his eyes. The tremor in her stomach reasserted itself, but Emma recalled Liam's questions earlier. This was not just a defense, it was her chance to redefine their expectations. "I understand their concerns. What I propose can disrupt traditional thinking, but to do that we need to take calculated risks." Her voice steadied with determination. "Calculated risks?" Rachel, head of finance, interjected. "The metrics must show clear benefits. We can't afford to jeopardize existing relationships with suppliers over ideals, especially without projected profits to back them." "Let's bring that focus," Emma retorted, relaxing her shoulders. "If we schedule more meetings with suppliers and analyze their adaptability in conjunction with our sustainability goals, we can find mutual benefits." She could feel the determination boiling inside her, pushing her to think beyond the immediate. This was not just a proposal, it was a pivot toward a future she envisioned. Richard's brow furrowed. "And what about current contracts? How will you convince our partners to embrace change?" Emma's breath caught. This was the crux. The implications were profound. "If we only cling to what is comfortable, we risk being left behind. My commitment is to ensure the agency not only survives, but thrives in changes ahead. This initiative can shift our company image towards one of innovation, attracting forward-thinking clients." There was a momentary silence, the board members exchanging glances as if weighing her words against their reservations. Emma took a step closer to the table, her heart thudding behind her ribcage, the anxiety threatening to eclipse her determined facade. Saying the next words would be her most significant risk yet. "I can present a detailed plan with clear metrics within the next 2 weeks. If, after that, you don't see a viable path, I'll step back." "Emma, that's bold." Richard's tone was still skeptical, but there was an ember of respect flickering there, too. "It's necessary, Richard," she replied, locking eyes with him. "Sometimes we have to be bold to secure our future." She saw him nod, a simple motion that from her perspective carried weight. Once the meeting adjourned, Emma stepped outside into the hallway, chest rising and falling in an unsteady rhythm. She had scaled the walls, faced the fortress, and while not victorious yet, she had certainly made headway. Claire was waiting just outside, her expression a blend of pride and concern. "Good job in there," she said gently. "But Richard's not one to let go easily." "And I can't afford to let go of this opportunity," Emma replied, feeling adrenaline mix with fear. "I need to gather data and illustrate our potential, hence the need for focus groups." "That's smart, but have you considered what that turnaround would entail?" Emma's resolve faltered for a flicker of a moment. There was more work to be done, not only strategically but mentally. She needed the team to be on her side during this process to navigate the potential pushback from colleagues resistant to change. "I'll rally them around this idea," Emma stated, but doubt mingled with conviction. Perhaps the most challenging aspect of her journey lay not in financial metrics or supplier relations, but in fundamentally changing perspectives, within the boardroom, the focus groups, and within herself. Days turned into frantic weeks of numbers, projections, negotiations, and engagement with her colleagues. But as tensions surfaced when plans were shared, Emma realized the stakes were rising, the landscape of their workplace changing rapidly. Soon enough, with data finally in her hands, the boardroom was once again the setting for a critical moment. Emma steeled herself for the decisive encounter that could either silence her critics or earn her the validation she craved. And in that room, faces reflected the crossroads of business's future. As she prepared for yet another pivotal moment, her phone buzzed with a message from Claire that made her stomach drop. "Liam is mobilizing some dissenting voices. They're planning to confront the board again. But this time, they're organized. Faced with a brewing storm, Emma realized her battle for acceptance had just begun. Would she uncover unexpected allies, or would she drown in the resistance that not only challenged her resolve, but also threatened to undo everything she'd worked toward? Emma stood at the door of the boardroom, her heart racing as she prepared for the confrontation that awaited her. The past few weeks had been a whirlwind of preparation, collaboration, and self-discovery. Yet the prospect of facing Liam's organized resistance gnawed at her confidence. She took a deep breath, reminding herself of the transformation she had undergone. She was no longer just a maid cleaning floors. She was a leader in her own right, equipped with a vision and an unwavering resolve. As she entered, she was met with an atmosphere thick with tension. The board members were seated, their expressions a mix of skepticism and curiosity. Richard, leaning back in his chair, gestured for her to begin. Emma's proposal had been refined through countless iterations, each detail meticulously examined. She understood the stakes. This was more than a presentation. It was about rewriting her narrative and reclaiming her place in a world that had too often overlooked her. "Thank you for having me today," she began, projecting confidence. "I'm here to share the sustainable initiative I proposed, backed by comprehensive data, to illustrate the potential benefits." Emma launched into her presentation, detailing her findings on eco-innovations and their impact on profitability, market attractiveness, and corporate reputation. The room remained tense, but she continued to build momentum, strategically addressing potential objections as they arose. She glanced toward Liam, who listened intently yet understatedly, his skepticism palpable. When she concluded, Emma shifted her focus to potential collaboration, underscoring the importance of building bridges rather than walls. This isn't just about profit margins. It's about positioning our firm as a leader in sustainability, showing that we care not only about our clients but about the world we live in. Liam's expression darkened as he interjected. "You make appealing arguments, Emma, but let's not forget the risks involved. We cannot afford to alienate our current clients while chasing ideals." Emma met his gaze, a mix of strength and determination fueling her stance. "And yet the danger of complacency poses a greater threat to our longevity, Liam. We risk losing market relevance if we refuse to adapt. The world is moving forward. We must choose to follow suit." Tension rippled through the board, colleagues exchanging glances, pondering her words. Emma pressed on, leveraging Claire's previous critique of the board's static approach. "Please invite the focus groups I've been convening." Their feedback emphasized how critical it is for our agency to innovate in response to evolving client values. The board was silent, contemplating their next move. Among the members she spotted Claire nodding, a supportive, reassuring presence amidst the consternation. Emma felt a spark of hope reignite. She wasn't alone. Richard finally broke the silence, looking thoughtful. "You've gathered valuable insights, Emma. And while I admire your passion, we need to ensure that these changes align with our operational capabilities. Any transition must be meticulously calculated." "Exactly," Emma shot back, feeling the momentum shift. "If we allow fear of change to dominate our strategy, we'll continue to operate in a shrinking bubble of irrelevance. Let us capitalize on eco-certifications that enhance our brand appeal while allowing us to attract a new clientele. We can offer workshops that build our internal capabilities alongside these initiatives." The room buzzed with murmurs, and it became clear that seeds of consideration had been planted among her colleagues. Emma felt a rush of empowerment. She had done more than present an idea. She had sparked engagement. Just then, Liam stood, clearly riled by her daring defenses. "Enough with the idealism. We can't afford to become a charity or let these green goals redefine our mission." The moment he uttered that statement, Emma seized the opportunity to pivot that energy. "But that's precisely the point, Liam. It is not just idealism. It is pragmatism rooted in the reality of evolving consumer expectations." The latest corporate reports highlighted a staggering trend. Businesses that adopt sustainable practices see a 25% increase in customer loyalty. Those being left behind lose out on essential revenue. John, a senior board member with a reputation for supportiveness, leaned in. It seems the data is shifting in favor of her proposal, Liam. Perhaps we should put this to a vote among ourselves? At that moment, the tension in the room transformed from hostility to alliance as members began contemplating the implications of Emma's insights. All right, I am willing to hear your full proposal involving focus groups and pilot projects, Richard announced, somewhat begrudgingly. But this will be contingent on rigorous follow-up and outcomes tracking. The realization washed over Emma, a profound sense of validation and affirmation for her journey. This was a watershed moment for her, one that reflected her transition from silence to assertion. The conversation shifted from defensive to collaborative as they examined the potential next steps. Emma recognized that through confrontation came opportunity, through doubt came determination. Days later, Emma found herself back at the law firm, her heart swelling with pride as she marveled at how much had shifted since she first set foot in those glass towers. With her proposals approved, she was now taking steps toward launching pilot programs that would innovate the firm's approach toward sustainability. As she sat in a meeting room, brainstorming with her colleagues, she felt exhilaration coursing through her veins. New ideas fluttered around, each one building upon the last, crafting a cohesive vision for their environmental responsibilities. Emma no longer felt like an outsider. She was right where she belonged, a critical player reshaping the narrative and planting seeds of change in a world that had once overlooked her. Looking out of the window over the skyline of the city, she reflected on her journey. She had successfully transformed resentment into resolve, vulnerability into authority, and despair into empowerment. Emma knew she had not only conquered her own doubts, but had proven her worth to a world that had been blind to her potential for far too long. Emma was no longer merely the maid who cleaned floors. She was an architect of change, a voice clamoring for a brighter, more inclusive future, a future where her insights and expertise would no longer be marginalized but recognized and celebrated. You need to subscribe now to witness more incredible transformations like Emma's. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help us spread these crucial stories. Comment your reactions and theories about Emma's journey and what it means to persevere. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. They will thank you for this dose of inspiration.